Hello everyone. I'd like to thank you for welcoming me into your home. As you can see from my bell crown hat, I'm a firefighter. And firefighters are usually welcome in everyone's home. We show up when you need help. Tonight, I'd like to spend some time showing you the Plainville Fire Department. The Historical Society in Plainville has run a special most of the summer entitled Tribute to Our Firefighters. And that's what I'd like to show you. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is David William Laurie. I use the middle name because volunteering has run in my family. Some of the older citizens of Plainville may remember my dad as a supernumerary policeman from 1948 to 1965. I joined the fire department in 1970, and I'm the 9th chief in the history of the department. Right now, the department is 122 years old, and we are on our 10th chief. I'd like to start by showing you our present home. This is a building that the town built and we moved into on December 1988. Just for a scale, a reference scale, I'm standing in an apparatus doorway, and if I spread out my arms, I can touch over 6 feet. Just for reference, these doors are 12 feet wide. Behind me is one of our newer pumpers. It's Engine 3, which was purchased by the town in 1999. Engine 3 will not fit in our previous 2 homes in Plainville. It fits here. So with that, let's go inside, and I'd like to show you something about our fire department. As a resident of Plainville, or even the surrounding towns, you're welcome here all the time for tours, especially for your children. And I'll bet, let me have a show of hands. How many of you have been inside this firehouse? It's been here since 1988. Come on down, see what your tax dollars are paying for. Now with that, come on, let's go inside and have a quick look around this building. Welcome inside our firehouse. We're inside the all-purpose room. Many of you, I'm sure, have seen the inside of this room by attending one of our pasta suppers. Our public suppers are held twice a year. This room is held for our company meetings, which are the first Friday of every month. They're also held for training, first aid courses. There's a lot that goes on in this meeting. Some of you, I'm sure, have been here when this has been a polling place, when we've had to use this building for voting. I'd like to call attention to the board behind me. This board represents all the men who have been firefighters in Plainville since the inception of this fire company on 12 January 1885 to 12 January 1985. There are approximately 389 names on this board. Since then, to bring us up to 122 years, we've added another 93 names. Plainville is a very unique place, and we're very fortunate to live and work in Plainville. Plainville is a very close-knit community, and I can demonstrate that from this board. From the blue tags, these are the charter members, and I can find Frank Osborne, father of Albert Sturgeon, father of past chief Clifford Sturgeon, 3 generations. There are many examples of 2 and 3 generations of firefighters, of brothers, cousins, uncles and nephews. Sometimes we get out of the relation, we get next door neighbors. But the important thing is, Plainville is unique. It is one of the very, very few towns in Connecticut that has never advertised for firefighters. You go to other towns and you'll see bulletin boards, support your local fire department. Support your local fire company. Join the fire department. We've never done that. And we've always had a waiting list of people who wanted to become firefighters. So again, this is the first 100 years of Plainville firefighters. Welcome into the next room I'd like to show you. This is our day room. There's television sets in here. There's a pool table that belonged to the firefighters. All the furnishings in this building belong to the fire company. The town does not spend tax money on the furnishings. That's all the fire company. But the reason I brought you in here is to show you this trophy case. There are trophies here that go back to the turn of the century. We have won all kinds of competitions, from firefighters' musters to tug of war to 100-yard dashes, 100-yard hose laying competitions. And the one I would briefly like to tell you about is Pittsfield. In Pittsfield, there is a record that the Plainville Fire Company set in the mid-50s that still stands today. And very quickly, what you had to do was run to your apparatus, start the apparatus, move the apparatus. A couple firefighters would jump off with the hose as the truck left laying in hose. You'd pull up to a cistern, throw in the hard suction, draw a vacuum, a prime, and pump water through the hose out the nozzle. The fireman with the nozzle then had to knock down a target. Well, this one day, the hose team truck wouldn't start. The starter in the truck was fried, would not work, it's inoperable. So the boys of the fire company went to the officials and asked if they could use the crank starter. And the officials laughed, but they went to all the contestants and got a unanimous, sure, go ahead, as they all laughed at Plainville using a crank starter. Well, the starter's pistol went off, Plainville laid the line. After starting the truck on the first turn of the crank, got the draft, pumped the water, knocked down the target, and won the competition. It's one of these trophies up here, and the record still stands. By the way, lots of trophies. It's probably half of them. We can't put them all out. We have too many. And the last thing in this room I'd like to show you, as we pan to the right, is an 1885 clock. That was the fire company's before it moved into the new town hall in 1890, and when we moved out of the town hall in 1936 to go to Whiting Street, the clock came with us. And then in 1988, it came here, still keeping very good time, well over 100 years old. Okay, we're in the front office of the fire department. As you know, everyone in Plainville is a volunteer from the chief on down. We do have a part-time secretary who works in this office 20 hours a week. But what I'd like to show you is this trophy case. The case, I purchased the case in 2003. What this represents were the 9 chiefs, including me. The first chief, Joe Edmond, we have his badge. That's the badge of the first chief from 1885. For each chief, I tried to collect something. So it goes from the badge of the first chief to the trumpet that the fire company presented me on my retirement as chief. The wooden plaque next to it, we'll get this badge when I finally totally retire. What I'm asking for is some help, though. There are a couple, Chief Bill Foran, that I have no piece of history for him. So you can help me if you're a relative or you know someone who is a relative of Chief Foran or any of these other chiefs. Please, please, please. The number is 747-4660. It's a non-emergency phone number to the fire department, and we'd be glad to take any information that you may have. Okay, again, thank you for your help in this project. I would certainly like to get a memento, the badge, the trumpet, a loving cup, whatever the former chief had, I'd like to add to this case. Again, thank you.
Hi, I'm Rose Stanley from the Plainville Historic Society, and I'm one of the members that worked on the display here at the for the tribute of the firefighters. I had the pleasure of working with the chief on this display. He oversaw what we were doing, and he and his wife were a great help to us. And we have today a little surprise for the chief in his coming over to our historical society. He noticed that we had an item that he wanted for his display, which was a badge that belonged to Chief Edward Pryor.
Oh, wow.
And that's from the Historical Society on permanent loan from us to display in your cabinet. And I want to thank you very much for all of your help on the display, and also the fire department for their loan of all the memorabilia and the gear.
Well, thank you, because in my terminology, this is going home. This will be added to the chief's cabinet for Chief Pryor. This means a lot to me, because I've been trying for a long time to get memorabilia from each of the 9 chiefs. The 10th chief is going to be easy. I've got Ray all pegged out with what he's going to give me, but for the other ones, this is one more piece of the puzzle solved. So again, thank you. And
I bet you didn't think you were going to get that fast, did you?
I didn't think so, but it'll go on display very quickly. Okay, thank you, and thank the Historical Society. We're now in front of the firehouse that was on Whiting Street. This building was built by the WPA, and the fire department moved from the old town hall here in 1936. We were here until December of 1989 when we moved to West Main Street. Remember the scale of the building that I had by putting my arms out? My arms are still 6 feet. The other doors were 12 feet by 12 feet. These doors are 10 feet wide and 9'6" high. The apparatus that I stood in front of would not fit in this door. If it were able to fit in a door, this building was built with a basement in the first half, this front half of the building, and the floor wouldn't take the load, the weight of the new truck. This is a very sturdy building, though, and I'm sure it'll serve the town for many more years in any capacity that the town desires. Right now, recreation is here, or the recreation department is here. But when it was a firehouse, it was built for a career or paid fire department. Plainville is still volunteer. This had 2 fire poles, one in the center of the building for the officers' use, coming out of the officer's bedroom, and the front part, directly above me, is a big area that was the dormitory, at least designed as the dormitory. And that's where all the firefighters would have slept, and they would have come down a pole in the front of the building to get on the apparatus. We have one of these poles installed at our new firehouse, more for sentimental reasons, to show the kids, but it's still there. We're going to leave here now and go back to our first building, the building on Pierce Street, the original Plainville Town Hall, which is now the Plainville Historical Center. Okay, we're standing now in front of the original town hall and the original town home of the fire company. Before the fire company moved into here in 1890, when this building was constructed, the fire company was housed in a building that belonged to Bristol Manufacturing, the stockinette. Remember that scale of doors? Our present building is 12 by 12. The building on Whiting Street was 9'6" by 10. Look at the scale of doors here. 9 feet wide, 8'4" tall. Nothing but our hose gig will fit in this building. Okay, now I'd like to take you inside and give you a tour of what the Historical Society has laid out as a tribute to our firefighters. We'll take a look there, and I'm sure you'll have an enjoyable visit. We've now moved into the building. We're on the second floor, and I'm standing next to the original siren. It's a mechanical siren off the 1914 Pope Hartford. And this is here for one reason. Every kid, no matter what his age, comes in and runs this siren. And after they do this, let's move into the display. I'm standing here in front of our 1892 hose cart. This is a jumper cart. It was purchased new. In front of me, this is a copy of the original petition that firefighters signed, sent to the town fathers in November of 1891 to spend up to $200 to purchase nozzles, hose, and this cart. This cart now is used every Memorial Day in our Memorial Day parade. It also has gone out of town. In 2005, we took this cart to Plainville, Massachusetts. It was their 100th anniversary, and they had come to ours in 1985. So we returned the favor 20 years later. Plainville, Mass. led the parade, followed by Plainville, New York, and followed by Plainville, Connecticut. We were all there for their anniversary, their 100th anniversary. This is on display in the firehouse every day. Before we start going through the timeline, I would like to ask and answer a question. What does it take to be a firefighter? It's a question that has been asked for thousands of years. A firefighter, yes, he's brave. His act of bravery is when he joins the fire department. After that, everything is simply in the line of duty. There's a poem here next to on the table. The last couple of lines sum up what is a firefighter. And it goes, he doesn't wear buttons or wave flags or shout obscenities. And when he marches, it's to honor a fallen comrade. He doesn't preach the brotherhood of man. He lives it. That's a firefighter. So now, let's start and look at the first timeline panel. The timeline starts before Plainville started, when it was the Great Plain. And there was no fire department. The first fire department, remember the town was incorporated July of 1869. The first fire company was started 3 years later, in July of 1872. Now, I don't know what happened or how it happened, but the town was not really happy with the fire company, and they started a new fire company. That's the fire company that I'm a member of. That's the fire company that started 12 January 1885. Our first chief was Joseph Edmond. Joe was chief for 17 years. Must have done a good job because he kept being chief for each year, year after year, for 17 years. There's other pictures here. An 1890 picture. Just some of the men in front of the present Historical Society, at the time, fire headquarters, the old town hall. On this timeline is the two-wheeled hose carriage or jumper. That's what we looked at first. The hose carriage was purchased new and is still here, still used for parades, but it could be pressed into service if we really dire emergency. We could load it with hose and use it again. Okay? Let's move on to the second panel. We're now looking at panel number 2. Panel number 2 has Chief Edmonds resigning and Chief Norton becoming the second chief for the town of Plainville. As we move through the timeline, we have one of the many pictures of the firefighting group. This picture shows 28 firefighters. And there's a quiz. How many firefighters does Plainville have today? The answer is 70 regular firefighters, plus members on the sub and waiting list. As we move through, we find 1914, the Pope Hartford came. Here's a pretty good picture of the Pope Hartford. You can see right here the mechanical siren. Remember the siren that blew when we first came into the building, before we entered the display? That's the siren sitting right there, proud on the top of that fire truck. It didn't have as much traffic to clear then. It did more with horses and pedestrians, but the same type sound cleared the way for the fire trucks. As we move along, we find that there was a fire in this building, in the town hall, which was also fire headquarters, and the police station. It was everything of the town. So let's stop for a minute and take a closer look at that fire. Then we'll continue the timeline. We'd like to discuss the 1917 fire that occurred in this building, the original town hall. We have this excellent model of the town hall pre-fire. And I'd like you to take note of number one, the hose tower, and the second thing of note, the 4 chimneys that come up through the roof. The last thing to take note of is it's 3 floors plus a very high peaked roof that had storage. So let's start going to the pictures of the fire, and we'll tell you a little bit about the fire. At 11 o'clock on the morning of December 5th, 1917, the fire alarm sounded for a blaze which threatened the town hall, the fire department headquarters, the jail, and the library. Henry Orvis, in charge of the town's road repair gang, entered the town hall about 11 a.m. and smelled smoke coming from the parlors of the fire department. While a search was conducted by Orvis and town clerk James Usher for a key to the firemen's quarters, someone phoned the Bristol Manufacturing Company and ordered the alarm sounded. For some unknown reason, the wrong alarm was blown instead of 5. 5 minutes later, the correct signal was sounded. Meanwhile, the fire had gained great headway, sweeping from the second floor which it had originated in to the large public hall on the 3rd floor. Answering the first alarm as chief, Ed Pryor saw that the fire company could not handle the fire alone and sent a call for help to New Britain and Bristol. In quick response, Engine Company 4 of New Britain, with Chief R.M. Dame and Captain Crow, worked a line from the roof of the Grange Hall, which was laid from the hydrant by the railroad tracks on West Main Street. The Bristol firemen laid a line from the corner of West Main and Canal Streets, while Plainville had 2 lines from the hydrant on Pierce Street and 3 lines from the corner of West Main and Pierce. While the fire was at its height, the Plainville Home Guard rescued their rifles and 2,000 rounds of ammunition. They then maintained fire lines and patrolled adjacent properties. A chute was used from boards and also coal chutes extended through the window of the town hall into a window of the lower floor of the Grange Hall. All records that were not locked in the vault were slid to safety on this chute, along with books from the library. Among property carried out of the building was a voting machine, which was carefully placed in the yard. A few minutes later, it was completely wrecked by a falling chimney. Estimated damage to the building was $16,000. The second floor was completely burned off, the firemen's quarters were ruined, and the fire trucks had to be stored at Cook's Garage until the building could be repaired. Hello again. We're back at panel 2, and something I'd like to bring to your attention is an article from 1900. This article talks about an injunction by the water company against the fire company not to use their hydrants and water. The reason? The town has decided that they're paying too much for water. They're exorbitant prices. Well, back here, the Plainville Water Company started in 1884 and put in 23 fire hydrants and associated piping. Exactly what was an exorbitant price, I'm not sure. But let me bring you up to today. 2007. The town is the largest customer of what is now Valley Water. Plainville Water became Valley Water. The town pays $636,000 every year for the hydrants, piping, and for the water company to be able to pump the water. I'm not knocking the water company. This is just a statement of fact. The hydrants, the piping, are like an insurance policy. You hope you never need it, but it's there when you do. 23 hydrants is now over 500. I'm sorry I don't have the exact number, but it's over 500. And all the piping, the water company constantly upgrades the infrastructure. So the 1884 stovepipe, I hope, is all gone. If they have any of it left, I'm sure it won't be in the ground much longer. Be replaced with ductile cast iron or other piping for greater fire flows. But my point, a century apart, people still think they're paying too much for water. Okay, let's move on, panel 2, to our third chief. The third chief is Chief Ed Pryor. Chief Pryor, the longest serving chief. Chief Pryor served for 30 years. When you get to be old like I am, you get to know everybody. Chief Pryor is the last chief that I didn't know. When we get to the fourth chief, Bill Foran, and from then till today, I know all of the chiefs, or I knew all of the chiefs. In fact, it's a little bit of a rarity, a little bit of an honor. I was a pallbearer for every chief after Chief Pryor. When they were deceased, I had the honor of being a pallbearer at every one of them. Okay, I'm standing in front of panel number 3 of the timeline, and you can see from all these articles, coming down to the picture of the fire company in 1920, they had a big field day. It was the 35th anniversary of the fire company, and from all accounts, this was one big shindig in town. They had a couple all-day affairs with different races and competitions and picnics and all kinds of things going on, celebrating 35 years of existence. Moving past them into the 20s, we got the first ladder truck. That was a Mack hook and ladder. Other ladders were carried on the apparatus, but not of this number or length. As Plainville got taller buildings, we needed longer ladders, hence the first ladder truck. This is a service ladder. It is not an aerial ladder. It just carried all the ladders. We have a picture in front of the rebuilt town hall showing the three apparatus at the time. On the left is a Pierce Arrow touring car given to the fire company by Frank Wheeler, an industrialist in town. His company ended up being the General Electric company. That's on the far left. On the far right is the Mack ladder, still in service. It's about 12 years old at the time. And the one in center is the most interesting. It's an American LaFrance. You can't see double, but that American LaFrance was made from parts from two American LaFrance. They were constructed about the same time. They had interchangeable parts. Each one had things wrong, and the fire company took them both apart and built this one truck, which served the town for quite a number of years. The apparatus is getting bigger. The building where the apparatus is housed isn't getting bigger. So, after a lot of bargaining, the town was able to secure a new firehouse being constructed from funds and the WPA. There are pictures of the cornerstone laying of the new fire station on Whiting Street. The fire company vacated the town hall and moved into the new firehouse in 1936. We'll show more of the building and the apparatus in our next panel. Okay, we have now moved into the new headquarters on Whiting Street. And our group of fire apparatus, only one major change. This is now the Buffalo, right, which is brand new. The same American LaFrance from the previous picture, and the same Mack ladder truck from the previous picture. The fire company has grown in size. This is a 1943 picture showing the fire company members in front of the station. There are new apparatus being added. And one thing of note is this center picture. This picture is October 1951. It shows 14 Trumbull men. Trumbull Manufacturing became General Electric in Plainville, and there was a public address system that could be accessed from the fire station to announce, "Attention Plainville firefighters, you have a fire at," whatever the address might be. Very civic-minded was the Trumbulls, and General Electric carried on that same tradition of allowing men to leave for fires and other emergencies. Let me get out of the way so we can talk about this fire coat. This fire coat is on loan from Peter Lennon, a longtime town clerk of Plainville, retired not too long ago as a firefighter. This is from the late 50s, early 60s. It is a rubberized coat. Very good at keeping you dry if it's raining or from hose streams, but also because it's rubberized, it didn't breathe, and you would drown in your own fluids. Offered some protection, but better than the canvas coats, but a long way from our present Nomex, which we'll talk about a little later. Okay, we're back at panel 4, and I'd like to introduce the first chief that I ever knew, and that's Bill Foran. He was our 4th chief, and again, I said I had the honor of being a pallbearer at a lot of chiefs, and Bill Foran was the first chief I was a pallbearer at. We also started getting Apparatus, 1941 Diamond T. It was still in service when I joined the fire department, so this is the first Apparatus I got to drive. We went through more Apparatus, and we came to the next chief. The next chief was Joe Fletcher. Chief Fletcher was my first chief. He was chief from 1957 to 1975, and as I said previously, I had joined the fire department in 1970. So this was my first chief, the first one who gave me orders, and I didn't question them. You can see the fire company is also growing, where we started out with 20 members and went to 30. We're up to 48 members here. This is 1954. We're continuing the timeline. This is the 5th panel, and a lot of things have gone on. One of the things is we continue to get new apparatus. We get apparatus that's bigger, better, pumps more water, carries more equipment. The town has been very good to the fire company in providing excellent equipment. I lost him. Where's my chief? Oh, our next fire chief is Cliff Sturgeon. Cliff, a longtime member of the fire company, became the 6th chief in 1975. Cliff's reign as chief is marked by several large fires, but we handled them. Moving from Cliff, we moved to 1980 when Howard Swanson became chief, and that time I became captain of the fire company. Again, we started with fires, and one fire in particular pictured me as our half-axed captain. This fire, unfortunately, a lady died in this fire, but if you can see the picture of that axe, it's the last picture of the axe as one piece, because here are the other pieces. When I threw it off the equivalent of the 3rd story onto the ground, so I could then descend the ladder, the axe broke. The apparatus that we've gotten through the years is very evident in this picture. This is 3 of the 4 ladder trucks. The old Mack is gone. It's no longer around. The first truck is a 1949 Diamond T. This is a service ladder, carried 250 feet of ground ladders, 500 GPM rotary gear pump, and then we went to the Snorkel in 1968. Snorkel was built by American LaFrance. It was an 80-foot aerial. It was the first aerial platform that Plainville had. You can see the difference between the 1949 and the 1968. We went to a 1,000-gallon-a-minute pump and an aerial bucket that went up 80 feet. The last one in line is our newest aerial. It came in 1993. It's a KME 102-foot aerial platform with a 2,000 GPM pump. This can either fill or empty a swimming pool in a matter of minutes. The amount of water that this can pump is totally unbelievable. And totally unbelievable. Just 20 years before, no one would have imagined one piece of apparatus pumping 2,000 GPM. Once Swanee became chief in 1980, things were starting to move quickly towards 1985. When was the company established? Come on, it's a quiz. Who guessed 1885? Perfect. We're coming up on the 100-year anniversary. We planned for several years for all the celebrations that went on with that. It was a year-long celebration. We had everything from a fireman's parade and ladies' night and a fireman's ball instead of a policeman's ball. We had a lot of things go on. And the night of our ladies' night, which we had on January 12th, the exact 100-year anniversary of the founding of the fire company, everything was delayed for several hours. Why would we delay it? Big fire. My wife and I were driving into the parking lot, ready to join other people there, when the fire whistle blew, and we went to a fire that had Plainville, Southington, and Bristol fight a fire, heavily damaged a farmhouse that was also over 100 years old. So we went to our fire in our formal fire suits. Some of them got ruined, all of them got wet. We went home, changed, and did the best we could to look like we had uniforms for the actual anniversary dinner. After we got through our celebration for 1985, we also had the first female firefighter in Plainville. Now, in the 122 years, we have never had what's called a regular female firefighter. Sandra Young became the first lady to try to become a firefighter. She was on the waiting and possibly onto the substitute list, working her way towards being a regular firefighter when Jobs and her husband, who was also a Plainville firefighter, had to move out of state, and hence she never became our firefighter. After our 100th anniversary, we started with our next station. Our next station was pushed very heavily by Chief Howard Swanson. Howard Swanson was the driving force behind us getting that station. As a result, Howard stayed a few extra months past his allotted time by town ordinance, so he was chief for the dedication of that firehouse, an honor well deserved. As soon as we moved in, after the dedication, we came to the 8th fire chief, Joe Watkins. Joe Watkins was chief for the 8 years that town ordinance allows, and the department and fire company moved forward under Joe's leadership. Joe, as all the other fire chiefs, started out as a rookie firefighter, moved up through the company ranks of second lieutenant, lieutenant, captain, second assistant chief, first assistant chief, and finally chief. Joe, along with Armin Lyons, were the first 2 emergency medical technicians in Plainville. They were the second EMT class in the state of Connecticut. Again, firsts in the fire service. This picture down here is the first Memorial Day taken in front of our new fire station on West Main Street. Going back to the start of the company with 20 and 25 to 28 to 43, we are now 58 strong, and we're going to grow some more before we finish. Okay, let's move on to the next set of panels. The timeline has now moved into the early 90s. In fact, this fellow looks very familiar. I am the 9th chief in line. Being the 9th chief, that and 85 cents get you half a cup of coffee, but we tried to move ahead. Every chief has a vision, tries to get things done. We had our share of fires like every other chief has had. We also spent a lot of time working on the insurance rating for the town of Plainville. ISO, Insurance Service Organization, rates the town. They come in and look at the fire department, they look at the apparatus, the training, the men that turn out for each fire, they look at the alarm system, how are calls received, transmitted, fire department reflex time from the time the call is received until they're on scene. They look at a myriad of things. They look at the water supply for major buildings. Can the water company supply the amount of water? Can the infrastructure provide the amount of water? At any rate, we were able to improve the rating from a 5 to a 4. And what that means is the average homeowner in Plainville pays less on their homeowner's insurance because of the rating of the fire department and the town of Plainville. Moving through the 90s, I was chief until 1997, and at that time the ordinance had me step down. There were a few things that were remarkable. The ISO rating was one. Another thing that was remarkable is we were able finally, I think, to get an understanding to the town council of why Apparatus needs to be replaced. ISO says a pumper is good for 20 years, an aerial for 25 years. Well, we had people who didn't understand why a fire truck that has 20,000 miles on it needs to be replaced. I've got a car that's got 150,000. What's the matter with this fire truck? It's bright, shiny, it's garaged inside. Well, that's where you get into engine hour meters, where there's only 20,000 road miles, but there might be several thousand, 100,000 engine miles, because the fire truck drives to the scene 3 or 4 miles, but then it sits there and pumps for 3 or 4 hours, the equivalent of doing 70 or 80 miles an hour on the road. The hours add up, and that's what causes fire trucks to have to be replaced. We now come to our present chief, who is Ray Swanson. Ray is the 10th chief. He was sworn in by the town council in January. I had the honor of not presenting his badge directly to him, but rather handing Ray's badge to Ray's father. Past Chief Howard Swanson then pinned the badge on his son, Ray. So now, besides fathers, sons, and grandfathers just being firefighters, we have had men who are father is captain, the son becomes captain, and now the father who was chief, and now the son who is the second chief in the same family. Again, going back to traditions in the fire service, you know, generation after generation is and has been and still is a tradition. Okay, let's talk a little bit about a firefighter's ensemble. Firefighters have to perform under very dangerous, very perilous work. Unfortunately, the average is about 100 firefighters every year die in the line of duty. This is a present ensemble that the firefighter wears to go into some very nasty environments. It's made of Nomex. It is a coat, pants, And you'll notice the knees are padded for reinforcement. Rubber boots that have a steel shank in the bottom, steel toes, steel throughout to protect the feet. The firefighter wears gloves. The gloves have to be abrasive resistant. They also have to be flame retardant. A pair of gloves is easily $50. The firefighter wears a helmet, quite different from the leather helmet that early firefighters wore. It's a composite helmet. It has a suspension inside to help protect from falling objects. It's not electrically conductive. We are trying to protect the firefighter. The shield, in this case, had been hiding a mask for self-contained breathing apparatus. And I'd like to talk about the self-contained breathing apparatus for just one moment. SCBA, as it's called, protects a firefighter's lungs, allows him to get into some very nasty environments as far as being able to breathe. And one other thing I'd like to talk about is the Scott air packs. As you can see from this advertisement, Mott Corporation, which is a Plainville company, makes parts that Scott Aviation uses in Scott air packs that are sold worldwide. So again, you talk about the small town. Yes, it's a small town which has a company with an international reputation and international clientele, and also one that every firefighter who uses Scott equipment can be thankful for. So just another connection between Plainville and the fire service. Okay, everyone knows that firefighters have to take training in water supply, hydrants, hose, and pumping. They take ladder classes, SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus classes, ventilation, overhaul, building size up, all the things to put out fires. What a lot of people don't realize is that firefighters are first responders for all types of rescues. Firefighter has to be trained in first aid, in forcible entry. Forcible entry is any time he has to get somewhere that's locked, blocked, or non-existent. He's trained in plane rescues, in steep angle rescues. You know, on the pictures here, it's called mountain rescue. It's steep angle. Firefighters do vehicle extrication, water rescue, ice rescue. They have to be trained in biohazards, radioactive hazards, hazardous materials. And they're also trained in things like fire prevention and something that's very important when they're fighting the fires, and that's fire evidence preservation. If there's a problem with the fire, if it wasn't started by natural causes, we have to investigate. The fire marshal has to investigate to get to the root cause of the fire. Was it man-made or electrical or some other reason? Why did we have a fire? So my point I'm making here is that firefighters come to everyone's help. Everyone, when they get into trouble, calls the fire department, including the police department. We are the first responder. And in a lot of places, in a lot of sayings you'll see on walls in different firehouses, it says, first in, last out. The quilt was made by my wife, Stella. It's made from t-shirts, commemorative t-shirts, for every year for the first 20 years of our balloon festival. The first one in the upper left was the 100th anniversary of the fire company's founding. And each one follows left to right, indexing down. There were only 17 made in the first 20 years. The other 3 quilt patches are made of the pictures of the 3 firehouses that have housed the Plainville Fire Company Fire Department since 1890. The quilt was presented to the fire company and subsequently presented to the Historical Society for preservation. What we're looking at, the center picture is the actual display over in our fire station commemorating the lives of 2 firefighters who were killed in the line of duty. On the left is Herbert Ewald, who died due to a blaze on Forestville Avenue in 1943. The firefighter on the right is Dominic Machini Sr. Dominic died fighting a fire in 1975. In the 122 years of the Plainville Fire Company, these are the only 2 fellows who have lost their lives trying to fight fires. Tragic as that may be, we are extremely lucky that only 2 men have given everything being a Plainville firefighter. And with that, I'd like to read for you Fireman's Prayer. When I am called to duty, God, wherever flames may rage, give me strength to save some life, whatever be its age. Help me embrace a little child before it is too late, or save an elder person from the horror of that fate. Enable me to be alert to hear the weakest souse, and quickly and efficiently to put the fire out. I want to fill my calling and give the best in me to guard my every neighbor and protect his property. And if according to your will I have to lose my life, please bless with your protecting hand my children and my wife. Amen.